Here we go.
We're ready, steady.
Hello, everybody. Hi, from the Intergalactic Council of Three, Lani and Laurie. We've had a busy week. We've just been chatting offline, and we thought we'd share some of our experiences because, as always, they seem to flow with great synchronicity. And hopefully some of our experiences will be of help for everyone out there who might be listening and watching. And yeah, so let's kick off. Laurie, you said you'd had quite a week, my love.
Yes, it's been putting little pieces together of things that have come up. And it's been a process. It's been a long process, but it's been a lot this week. Is just all kind of, putting it all together.
Yeah.
So a couple months back, I got a reading from a medium, and they said that Melchizedek was coming in. And I didn't even know who that was. So looking it up, I was just, picking it out. And of course, I went right to the Bible and started talking, that. But there's not much there. So kind of found people that channeled them and uses his name, and how he's part of like the White Brotherhood Council of Light and the Golden Dawn. And then it just kind of traveled into, which I thought was interesting. And picked up bits and pieces there, because everybody has different things they want, they have, and it just kind of whatever resonated with me, I just kind of picked up. And then I fell into the Sumerian tablets, which kind of with the Anunnaki and talking about how the earth was seeded and that, and I pick up bits and pieces of that, but then it goes into a little bit of history of coincide with the Palladian history that I've picked up.
Yeah.
And how there's really a lot of similarities. So, it's just kind of figuring out where it all comes together. And I picked up a book now, and she talks about different planets of the Palladian, 7 sisters. And she talks about Atlas, which is really, it's a water planet. And I've had multiple dreams about this planet. And I was like, so all these like little, and these are old dreams. Like I pulled out my book and was reading my dream journal. I was reading, I was like the way she only had like one chapter describing it, but I have multiple. I was like, this is exactly what she's describing in a short little paragraph that I have like all this memory of. So it was really interesting how one piece led to another, and you would never expect all of that to come together. But it's been really fun. It's been a fun little investigation.
Yeah.
So that's been my week on that. And then, along with, here in the States, so you're getting ready for Thanksgiving. So all the 3D stuff along with everything. I feel like I'm being pulled in 2 different directions, but it's been fun.
Because you are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
No, go. Yeah.
What, other than like piecing in basically remembrance, which, is all about that, have you found that it has really filled in a lot of blanks, or has there just been a message that, has come through, if that makes sense?
I think it more or less, it answered some questions for me, but then it created so many more.
Yeah.
So
that's what I was wondering.
That's how it always works, right? You're always like, all right, I got that piece figured out. Now what's all this other stuff mean, So it kind of just put it into reference again that what you dream is really not just dreams. There really are bits and pieces of information that are for real. You might not understand it at the time, but just that's, and more that's coming up for me.
Yeah.
And even with hypnotherapy, like when we would play around with future lives and past lives, well, that kind of tapped into the Anunnaki of the big God. And this is before I even knew anything about the Anunnaki and how they came and how they were giants. I didn't realize they were bigger, but I had a dream that I came down and I was a giant. But then that was my future life. But one of my past lives, I was one of the earthlings that was it was all feminine. It was very like nobody owned anybody. We were all just one community. And there were big beings that came down. So that was like a full circle of like, so I've been the earthling and I've been the tall being, the Anunnaki or whatever you want to call it. So it just, like I said, you start putting these pieces together, but then you're like, okay, but now what?
Yeah. Well, that now what is a very interesting question. I had a tarot reading with a beautiful gentleman called Ivan Brownrigg at Avebury Tarot. And he lives very near the Avebury Standing Stone Circle, which is on a ley line. I think it's the St Michael's ley line connecting with Stonehenge and other fantastic ancient Neolithic sites around Wiltshire. And one of my challenge cards was the Searcher, and the other challenge card was the Sun, and then another was the Empress. And we sort of really did chuck around the Searcher sort of concept. And because in my first triangle, the Moon card was the top of the apex, so my sort of gifts, my strengths, etc. He said, I think this is trying to tell you to stop searching and just allow it to come to you. And when he said, just let the searching go, I recoiled. It was like somebody had kicked me in the solar plexus. He saw it and he sort of jumped. And I went, oh no. And I thought, oh, that feels like abject grief at a loss, because I've been searching all my lives. I am on a journey toward gaining esoteric and metaphysical knowledge, and sort of, I would give up everything tomorrow and just sit in a library of the Akashic records and just read everything. And he said, everything in your spread is saying to you, it's coming to you exactly as it should do. Just let this sort of active searching go. So the human aspect of us says, what do I need to do now? What do I need to do now? I need to do something. I need to do something. Or I've stopped that bit. I've come to that bit. Move on. And it was just such a strange concept. He said, just stop searching. And then the card in the middle was the Tower. And that felt like, I know, and I love getting the Tower. I love getting the Tower. And we tuned in, and it felt like this was the end of an old way of doing it. I mean, quite a physical, fairly brutal sort of end. This habitual sense of searching for knowledge, for sort of expansion and self-development, almost obsessive and utterly relentless. And that has now come to the end. Let it go. And then the card that was outside the deck, the floating card, was I may have got the words wrong, but it was the traveller has come to the end of the land. And there's a traveller standing right on a sort of at the edge of a cliff, not the fool, but he's literally, and he's staring into the distance at the Sphinx and the pyramids, and there's the sea between him and them. So you know he wants to get there, but he's come to the end of the old habituated response to life of traveling the well-worn path. And there was I didn't know if it was a dawn or a sunset in the background, and Ivan said, no, it's a sunrise. So it felt suddenly very liberating that here was the end of my, shall we say, slightly habitual, ritually searching in an old-fashioned way. And here I am stepping on the threshold of the most unknown way to bring in my sort of expansion and my vibrational shift. And it's so unknown that I have no clue how that's going to be. But all I know is if I can let go of the old ways of doing things, then surely that is all going to come to me. And my bottom left on the gifts was the nymph of ability, and the standing in your power, the just allowing yourself to be in your mastery, in your light. So that was a fabulous example of, we don't always need to say, what do we do now? Because that was the question I was going to ask. Exactly. Sorry, so you've got all this great insight, you've got your dreams, fantastic, you've almost had this whole cycle of lifetimes, you're pulling it into the context of everything you've been familiar with. Now you've got this extra sort of element of Melchizedek. Now what? I was just about to leap into the old way of doing it. Right, we've got to get books, we've got to learn about this. What are you going to do? And it's not about doing. It's not about doing, is it? It's just about allowing and being in that wonderful place of knowing, and these lovely things sort of dropping into place
They do, and that's
And
how
that's
it works.
it.
I mean, you don't have to look. It just kind of happens.
You don't have to look. You don't have to look. It just comes to you.
I love what you said, that it is new in the sense of, right? We're in this new energy, in this creation where we have a canvas, where before that old way of being was what we needed to do, right? To be to a degree to, you know, where we were, right? Collectively, let's say that. Yeah. So now it's like we're at that point where we can create. We're not out of, you know, having to just keep doing, which what you said, you know, merges right with what I've been going through. And that's why there's a lot of clearing for me of the old way of being, of the old way of thinking that I have to do this and this and this to have it come, you know, things come your way. But it's that whole idea of when things come, you are the one paving the road for yourself. Yeah. So once you put that one foot, you know, 1 foot forward, whatever you're doing, if that's clearing, if it's on a metaphysical level, if it's on a physical level, it all adds up. But there is no end. Do you know what I mean? There's no end result, and you don't know until you try. Where for us, you know, I'm saying for the intuitives, that, you know, the seers, so to speak, we're used to having some, you know what I mean? Some forward momentum. And so I think for us, when you were saying that, Claire, that's what I've been dealing with too, is that letting go, that fully trusting, that fully surrendering, knowing that it's simple. You know what I mean? Once we do it. But I think we are so used to using our innate abilities that we forget that that's not what it's about. It's about the experience, right? And we're definitely the fool card when it comes to now how we're creating.
And it's also, I loved what you said, Lani, about we know there's a habit of using innate abilities. You know, we do because we can. You play to your strengths, don't you, in this lifetime, or these lifetimes in a 3D. And what's so interesting is we don't know the half of what we're capable of. We're probably only aware of maybe 5% of what we're capable of. And I get this sort of huge sort of sense of excitement that some of what we would call perhaps the old skills, telepathy, teleportation, you know, appearing, disappearing, because we're doing vibrational shifts, we're stepping into different realities, all the Doctor Who stuff, all the Star Trekky and Star Warsy stuff.
Reading timelines or seeing timelines.
I just get this huge sense that all of this is going to start tumbling out. It's all going to start happening really quickly. If we allow for the fact that we can do it, and we're not limited by our sense of, well, you know, that's just preposterous. As you said, Laurie, the dreams tell us everything. We're capable of doing all those things in our dreams. Why wouldn't we do it in this reality that we happen to think is the reality? But it's one of many, isn't it? It's one of many realities.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And the work we do is all the time. Yeah. So even when, like, I'm feeling like recently, like I haven't been able to physically do tons of things because of being physically supposedly sick, not sick, but anyways,
feels like it.
I've had the flu symptoms. So I remember, I think Lisa Transcendence Brown said the whole frequency light upgrade as that. And it's so true. But when you feel that, it really does humble you every time, because it's like, you're still doing the work, and you're really doing the work, because it is all about that. So it's not just us in the physical, where I always think, oh, you know, we're so aware, we know that. But then when you get hit, you're like, okay, yeah, no, it's true.
Well, and then you just get a different angle of it. You're like, oh yeah, there's that part of it.
And I got a physical hit, because I don't get that many these days. So when it comes, it's quite shocking, because I think a lot of the time I glide, and I've got my philosophy that serves me, and I feel pretty happy most of the time. And then occasionally something, you know, gets you, doesn't it? And I've had 7 conversations with 7 different people this week, all on exactly the same scenario, which was spooky. And it was all about that choice of staying in your truth and exercising mastery, or being drawn into the 3-dimensional triangle of victim, rescuer, and abuser. And every person I spoke to had a really sort of traumatic bust up, really aggressive arguments. Long-standing friendships were teetering on the brink of annihilation. I mean, just shocking stories that people were sharing with me. And then each of these people just reconnected in that moment. And instead of going right down the rabbit hole and joining the person in that drama, just saying, you know what, if that's how you feel, I'll let you go. And then, of course, that other person is released from being the victim, the rescuer, or the abuser, because that other person isn't joining them there. And they get this sudden insight where they can reconnect with the heart. And then I'm thinking of one scenario where the person just goes, no, I don't want this friendship to end. And, and then there's tears and heartfelt sort of apology. But it was also intense. And by the time I got to the 7th conversation with the 7th person, I actually felt physically sick. Because I thought, okay, this is just too spooky now. This is the same story 7 times. What is the universe trying to tell me?
Right, seriously.
And I couldn't work it out. I didn't know what I was meant to do with this, apart from bear witness and support. So it was very fortuitous that I had the tarot reading the next day. And I said, in the context of that, what am I to learn? And then all these cards came out saying, well, just let go of the old way of doing things. The universe is mirroring back to you. These are your choices. Stay in the old drama, let it go, stay in your power, and with kindness, compassion from the heart, you say, do you know what? I'm not joining you there. I'm not joining you there. I'm just going to stay in my truth with great love. And if it means that's the end of this friendship, so be it. I will let you go, but I'm not going to join you in it. And I thought, that was quite an intense week, and great learning, great insights. And then, of course, that tower card in the middle saying it's all coming tumbling down. And, Lorna Bevan, Hair in the Moon astrology, she talks about the crumbling on a massive scale of everything that is not based on truth, on authenticity, on integrity, will come a tumbling down.
And you can see that. I've seen that in a lot of people's lives right now. Just like things are it's like the tower cards everywhere.
Yeah, everywhere.
Like all the false things are breaking down, and yeah.
I think what's really cool too is, for me, I can so relate with what you were just saying, of course, Claire, but also what I saw for myself is like contracts and different things that I thought I was going to continue with something, and it's just like, no, you're done. And that's what I think with friendships, with whatever it is in our lives, we can't be attached. And you know what I mean? It's such a catchphrase in the spiritual community, and we all act like, yeah, we understand. But it is truthfully right now, you can't be attached and you can't take it personally. To the extent of, like you were saying, with the friendships and all of that, I realized that with myself with things. And it's just kind of like, it's come to that clearing point again, where if we're changing, they're changing, whatever, again, no judgment, but it's not working. So we can't get attached to, we've had this friend for 20 years, or we've had this friend for 2 months, or whatever it is, because the thing is that it no longer is suiting one or both. And we have to let it go. The same with thinking that we're going to do something, business wise or something with someone else. And you're like, you know what, actually, no longer, this is my last month or whatever it is. Yeah. But I think it's like, that's what I really feel with this shift, right? With this, whatever is really happening at this moment, because we know it's always happening, but it really is pushing us in, the trajectory of where we want to be, of exactly what in the tarot card for Claire, saying that it's pushing us all of us individually, is pushing us where we want to be, our highest timeline, where we are wanting to create and be from. And I was thinking with business, especially when you're doing your spiritual business, there's so many things and guidelines, and you need to do this first and you need to do that. And I think we're really at that point of sovereignty and not in the point of seeking anymore, that we know what's right for us. And I really felt the way with the friendships and all the other things, as well as it's kind of like, no one's going to tell me, or I'm not going to be guilted to feel like I need to do things a certain way. I'm going to do what's best for me. I hope you understand. And so for me, it's been like in all aspects. So then when you do that, like you said, Claire, it affects you in all ways of being. So then you see your life just do a huge whoosh.
It really does though, because the vibration just trickles out. It's like changes everything. Yeah.
So when you were saying that, I was like, oh my goodness, I'm going to shut my mouth because I'll be your 8th person.
Well, I'm the 9th. Well, yeah, but it's just a wonderful, I think it was just the intensity of it that just knocked me off guard.
I totally forgot it till you brought it up, and I was like, oh yeah, that happened to me too. Yeah.
But the blowouts are, that everything is on a grander scale, isn't it? Because I just, like you said, Lani, I don't think sitting on the fence is an option anymore. Just going into the grey, fuzzy, muzzy, or I'll work that out later, or we'll just ride this one out and see what happens. I think we just have to go and be in that knowing and then respond in the knowing and just get on with it. It's almost like we don't have the luxury of time, 3D time, to just wallow around, not being clear. I think that, and Lani, you said a few weeks now, clarity is, we are being asked to have clarity on everything. There's not a bloody day off, is there? There's not a single bloody day off in this. Everything we turn to, what do you feel about that? What is your truth about that? How will you stand in your integrity with that? How are you going to deal with that? Frazzling.
And I love it because it's not always something we've been taught to do. So it's like, here we are having to stand into our power and to be clear with ourselves and with everything around us. But yet still not play the paradigm, the pyramid paradigm, like you're saying, try to play all the rules. And even with yourself, even
100%.
Well, that's right, because we in moments of stress we can slip back into the old way of thinking, and that classic line of
we like
exactly, and a couple of themes came up again of well, that person made me feel awful, and with the greatest care I've invited the person I'm having that conversation with to consider no one can make you feel anything other than what you choose to feel in the moment. So it's that thing of being empowered the whole way through, even though it's feeling pretty wretched and pretty horrid, and your heart is being broken. If we can just remind ourselves, I choose to feel this way. I will not give my power away and then say, you are making me feel unhappy. Because I think that for the human condition is almost hardwired in the 3D world, where we cast out for who is it that we can, give our power away, and then they are now responsible for whether we feel happy, sad, angry, okay, whatever. And it's just that reminding oneself, I choose. And there's no judgment. I might choose to wallow in self-pity for a bit longer. Way to go. Enjoy it while you're there. I might choose to just have 5 minutes of woe is me, and then I'm going to pull my pants up, so to speak, and just get on with it and just go, no, let's get some insight, let's get some clarity, back in my power, raise my vibration, on to the next.
Well, I think the other thing too is it's easy nowadays, and I was speaking to someone about this who is hitting the same thing, of course, is that the term now ghosting, the idea that you don't even seek, you just stop talking to someone. You just don't, you don't want to deal with the confrontation. You just stop doing it. And I think, I can say that I have definitely done that in the past without being aware of the term or whatever that. But when that came up for me with someone recently, it literally had nothing to do with that person. I really didn't do anything intentional, but my shifting my vibration changed that relationship. So I had that point of when I was getting, that confrontation, that, message, I was really shocked because I really didn't know where it came from. And I was just kind of like, what is this? But then when I took the time and I really thought about it, I realized that me changing how I'm seeing and how I'm being changed that relationship. So I decided to have that chat and just see what happens from there. Because again, I didn't have any motives of where it was going, where it wasn't going. And again, it was a fun, I enjoyed this relationship. And then when I was speaking to that person, I just saw that it was collapsing. it wasn't going anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
But I have, you know, and still have so much love for that person. And I said, well, we'll just see where it goes later on, but let's just stop, because it isn't suiting you and it isn't suiting me right now, because it's causing you pain. Yeah. And I don't even know, you know, I just know from what I'm doing, if that affected you and didn't affect anyone else in my reality, then this is a sign, you know what I mean? And just how I was feeling. So I was just like, no big deal, but we'll see where our paths cross later in life. But I think for me, that was huge. Because I tend to be the person that always is like, I want to make you feel better. You know what I mean? Like, okay, Claire, what do you need? And even if I feel like this isn't working for me anymore, I'm too afraid to tell you what really is going on. Yeah. And like, I was honest completely. And it felt really good, because I'm just like, you know, it really isn't, you know, working out anymore for me either. Mm-hmm. But again, it shouldn't be a huge, you know, feeling bad. And either it was just exactly what you said, and it was huge for me. So it's like, it puts us in that sense of power again, sense of sovereignty, because we don't have to just give in because it feels like we want to be the nice guy, right?
Yeah. And that's just brought up a thought about how sometimes when we say, you know, we're here to be of service, can be confusing, because that can be taken as, well, I'm here to compromise. I'm going to compromise my truth to the hilt, because actually I'm here to serve you. And I think that was one of the biggest challenges for me over the years, which was finding the balance of, I can still serve you and stay in my truth. And it might be having those difficult conversations. I don't need to compromise anything. We talked about that last week, about it is all about me. And sometimes being of service is actually allowing that person to see themselves, see the habits they've got into, you know, see why they maybe resort back or default back into victim consciousness and blame everybody else. They're giving their power away. And sometimes those sort of conversations actually have to be had, and that is you being of service.
And the same with our clients, though. It's not having someone for a certain amount of time. How I see it is that as long as you need in empowering, I'm here to empower you. If that's one visit, if that's two, it doesn't matter. But I don't think it needs to be that long-term idea. Like, I need to book you in for 6 months. And you know what I'm trying to talk about. Again, it's different for everyone, but I even saw that with courses and things that are out there, because honestly, our vibration, we're changing so much. We are working on ourselves so much, and our choices that we're making on a moment to moment, second to second, daily, that we're here to serve people where they are. And if they change, we need to allow that to happen as well. We need to release that. We need to not have set ideas that it takes X amount of time, because with this acceleration process, it's not about that anymore. And that's what helped me with my business, is that I don't want to set these, you know what I mean, timelines and things up. I want it to be free flowing. I want to be able to serve people where they are and not think about all of that business stuff.
And that's, you know, because that resonates with you, that's going to grow into something beautiful, you know, and then you'll be proud of what you did because you did it your way instead of someone else's way.
Yeah. And that's why I was so stuck for a while, because I was trying to make my creativity fit a box that wasn't there. And I was trying to keep stuff going and thinking I needed to learn something more. And it was like, you've learned it, time for you to go.
Yeah. And that's what I always say. You take bits and pieces what you need from it, because you're obviously there for a reason.
Of course.
So take what you need and then go, okay, this doesn't, you know, then move on. And a lot of them, you realize that, like you said, Lonnie, is when you start to evolve and take off, they're not. So it's your turn to take what you know, the seeds that you got, move along and take it and grow into what you want it to be. And I think that's the only way to be.
Yeah. I used to, when I first qualified as an acupuncture practitioner, if patients came for some treatments and then didn't show again, I used to go into paroxysms of torturous thoughts of, firstly, have I killed them? That was always a worry. Then I sort of pulled back from the brink on that one. Then I would think, oh my God, how have I I've obviously offended them greatly. What did I say or do that has, you know, made them stay away? And I literally think, oh, I need to phone them. I'll write them a letter. I'll go round to their house. I know where they live. And, you know, just, it was awful. I needed feedback to reaffirm that I was okay. And then over the years, it's got to the point where if I never see them again, I think that's a job well done.
See, that's what I mean.
That means they're now stepping out on their journey. They don't need to see anybody. They don't need to have that sort of person to bounce ideas off, because they've got that inner knowing that, you know, they can feel their own truth, and they've got the confidence to just go out and do it. So I just think that's brilliant. You know, please God, I never see you again, and that'll be a job well done.
Exactly.
Your friends about me so that I can replace you.
Yeah.
Not really. More time to write my book if I haven't got any patience, which is brilliant. So my little one, I'm keeping an eye on the time. We've probably got 8 minutes to go. Should we do a question from the singing bowl, or shall we do a card? Anybody got any cards?
Yeah, what do you have for a card? Since we're talking about Kira.
I've got Galactic Heritage, Earth Magic, the Work Your Light, and the Keepers of the Light.
Let's do Keepers of the Light. What do you think?
I was so thinking that. Oh my goodness. Why am I ever shocked that my, you know, brain waves are the same as you girls?
Right.
Should never question it.
This is where we meet up for the hour.
Okay, so either of you, do you want to say stop when you're ready? And I'll pull that top card.
You get to say stop, Lonnie.
Okay. Oh my goodness. Sorry, I was just laughing because all the cards are like falling.
They're all just dropped. I've just
all right.
lost the facility.
We need them all. Okay, ready.
Okay.
Oh my goodness, it's not happening. Maybe it just
maybe it doesn't want to be shuffled.
Yeah, maybe you should just pull a card, Claire.
Okay, that's really odd, isn't it? Because normally I'm an expert shuffler, and I should have worked in a casino, but they just all fell apart. So I'm just picking one now for all of us.
Yes, just
right,
for
back
all of us.
to the 3D world for a brief moment. Okay, the Divine Director, intervention and purpose. Divine intervention is occurring. Know that you are being guided. Happiness is your purpose.
That's beautiful.
That is.
So that's pretty, I'm not convinced I've seen him before, Divine Director, which is saying something because I've used these cards a lot.
Which very much connects with all that we were saying, of course.
Yes.
Yeah.
It always does. I love the beauty of that. It always does.
I mean, that's why it's like, I know all three of us are so addicted to cards, but that's why, because it's just a beautiful, fun way, right? Of having, you know, another tool of guidance.
Right.
Yeah.
And he's on page 100, which is a very pleasing number, isn't it?
Okay.
Okay.
If not, we pull another card. No, it's
don't make me shuffle again. It'd be a disaster. I'll be traumatized. The Divine Director is a facet of the heart of the Creator. According to New Thought teaching, his energies merge directly with God's divine plan, so that we can access it and understand on a deeper level what will support our true function, which is to be happy. The Divine Director works directly with angels, and in particular guardian angels, so that they can fulfill their role of supporting the earth and all of her people. Right now, your angels are reminding you that your divine purpose on earth is to remember love and do what makes you happy. Extended message. Yippee! Divine intervention is taking place at this time. What is occurring in your life is providing a real learning curve for your soul. You are becoming aware of a sense of purpose in your life. It gives you a sense of joy. It's something that brings you pleasure rather than something that you have to work for. Know that your career can complement your purpose, but not define it. But the path you are on at this time is right, and the universe is encouraging you to move forwards. Oh, that's beautiful. It's just everything that we've been talking about.
I love that.
So beautiful.
That's him, the Divine Director. Awesome. Awesome. Okay, thank you very much for that. And we've probably got a couple of minutes if we want to do a question from the singing bowl.
Sure, let's look.
I don't know if they're going to cut us off again.
I know, right? We'll have to do a little.
You gotta keep it brief.
We'll do a couple of minutes, and then I think we'll say goodbye.
All right, let's do
just like that.
Here, we'll do a quick one then. This one will be kind of an easy one. So an example of the first time you knew that you were a starseed.
Oh, that's a cool one.
That's cute. Let me think.
Oh, and then my brain just went.
Oh, I don't know.
Right?
Oh, I put my glasses on upside down. I'm all discombobulated.
That's how she knew.
How did we know starseed? When did I first know of the concept of not belonging?
Right. Mm-hmm.
I think that was definitely a gradual realization, talking to lots of different people.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know, I'm not convinced there was one thing. It was like you said, Laurie, at the beginning of the transmission, something slotted. There were a whole series of things that just slotted into place.
Mm-hmm.
That feeling of not belonging as a child, of being very different from everybody else, of being a crybaby, very sensitive. You know, everyone said, oh, she's a sensitive soul, because I was always crying, apparently, as a child. Everything was overwhelming.
Because you're an empath.
Because I'm an empath, exactly. And then always seeming to be on the outside. We used to have a phrase, it's slightly crude, a phrase in the Air Force. I'm sure it's a military phrase. If you've got somebody who's being difficult and disruptive, we always say it's better to have them on the inside pissing out than outside pissing in. So basically, if you've got somebody who is just being obstreperous and difficult and disrupting the team dynamic, you bring them into the team and give them even more responsibility, even more of a...
Because you'd rather have them on your team.
Yeah, have them on side and make them fight for you rather than having them outside, constantly being bloody critical and the know-it-all. Oh, I knew you wouldn't work like that. So I think I've always had this sense of not wanting to be on the team. We talked about this last time, and having to be on the outside. And then as soon as I'm on the outside, I want to be on the inside. So it's just that sense of not finding a place of belonging anywhere through most of my adult life. And then these wonderful people like yourselves and other people I've met along the way who also have that. And we've got these little satellite collaborations outside of mainstream. And that suddenly just felt like home. It just felt like home. Right. And I think that's... And then
people that you resonate with like that, there is like a giddiness that happens. Yeah. You're just like, oh my God, you're like me. Oh my God.
Yeah. So that was it. I think that was it for me. Just a growing realization of not being the same, really, not being the same as everybody else I saw. Yeah. How about you?
What about you, Lonnie?
I think the same, similar in that way. But I think also what really comes for me is knowing, like watching sci-fi movies and just having this out of the box thinking about life completely. And that anything's possible. And even though, you know, that dream could have been killed a lot of times, I just always knew anything's possible.
Yeah. Like
I always felt like there was more. Like, you know, you're at school and like what they're teaching and stuff, and you're like, wait, there's more to that. There's, you know, that can't be it. You know, and so when you start meeting other people that actually think the way you do, and you start having conversations and putting, you know, again, the puzzle pieces, and you're like, oh, you think like I do. And again, like the sci-fi stuff, like, you know,
and
like,
the creativity, like Starseed's creativity is crazy.
Right. Yeah.
And you've just reminded me of that lovely film E.T. And when E.T. goes, E.T. phone home, and I burst into tears. I felt such a sense of sadness from that character, who is obviously real. And nobody else in the cinema was crying, but I was bawling my eyes out. And when he got on the bicycle at the end and was going home, I was going, yes, take me with you.
My parents said I look like that as a baby, because my first picture, my finger was like that.
Hey!
To touch the camera, so they called me E.T.
That is brilliant. All right, my darling, I've been given the nod that we're less than a minute to go, so I think we should just say a dignified farewell.